Seahawks Today coming up in just a moment. But first, don't forget to join us for our Seahawks versus Lions watch party live here on Seahawks Today. We will get things started coming up around 9 a.m. It'll be early on the West Coast, but don't worry. We're going to have a hell of a time as we'll have a few drinks on hand. We'll break down the game in real time, and we'll root on your Seahawks together here on the channel. Seahawks, Lions, live here on Seahawks Today. You will not want to miss it. Come on in, stay a while, and join us for our second watch party of 2023. And we are battling our Lions channel all week long in a sub-battle. We've gained about 114 new subscribers on our channel. Lions Talk doing a little bit better, though. So, sub for dubs. Let's not just beat the Lions on the football field, but off the football field as well. And we'll get started with this edition of Seahawks Today. Coming up on Seahawks Today, should Seattle trade for Chase Young? I will tell you why they should. Plus, we have an update on Jamal Adams and his injury status, as well as some roster moves that the Seahawks have made over the last few days. We'll catch up on all of that and more coming up in a matter of moments. Let's start with Chase Young. Bleacher Report put a list together of their big board of the top trade candidates prior to the trade deadline around the NFL. And Chase Young was listed as the top trade candidate on their big board, on the trade block of anybody out there. We've talked a lot on this channel previously about the idea of bringing Young to Seattle, and now might be as good a chance as ever to bring him in. More from Christopher Knox of Bleacher Report. The Commanders declined his fifth-year option and may look to move on in the offseason. If Washington isn't sold on his long-term prospects, getting something in return before the trade deadline would make plenty of sense. Now is the perfect time for a team to buy low on Young. Look, I'm not going to just sit here and be content with the lack of pass rush. It was awful what we saw from the Seahawks this past weekend, of the lack thereof of trying to get after the quarterback. And I know people are going to point to the defensive tackle position. That's easy to talk about, that nose tackle spot. But really, you had nothing at defensive end. You had nothing at edge. I mean, it was just bad. And of all the guys out there right now that are the easiest to go get, Chase Young is the best option available. Now, why Chase Young? Let me break down my 5 reasons. Number one, first and foremost, he's a generational talent. This guy was picked number 2 overall because guys like Chase Young don't just walk through the door every single day. He is built different. And what do I mean by built different? Elite size and length. 6'5", 264. If you were to make a pass rusher in a lab, he would look like Chase Young. I can tell you that much. Number 3, he's got the power to play through blockers. That certainly helps if you're trying to get through the quarterback, is to be able to go through guys. And he's got that ability to do just that. His knee, according to reports, is no longer an issue. That is all figured out as far as that injury that he had last season, and certainly had a lot of question marks about. Doesn't seem to be a problem for him going forward. And then number 5, he is constantly going after quarterbacks' arms. This is what Chase Young does well. Maybe he doesn't get the sack always, but he's constantly creating pressure and making things difficult on opposing quarterbacks. To me, that's why you can't miss on the opportunity to get Chase Young. So, I'll tell you more about Chase Young in a second, but first, should the Seahawks trade for Chase Young? Here's your chance to weigh in. Tell me what you think here on Seahawks Today. Our pinned comment, Y for yes, N for no. What do you think? Should they make a trade here or not? Chime in, tell me what you think. Now, you look back at last week of Seattle's performance, and obviously there was a lot to take away, but one of those with that lack of pass rush, I think the statistics make this pretty obvious. Not only did the Seahawks not sack Matthew Stafford last week, but they only had 2 QB hits. And so when we look at Chase Young, of that pocket awareness to wreak havoc, even when he's not getting the sacks, that will go a long way and be exactly what this Seahawks team is looking for. And think about this. there is still a great mystery about Chase Young due to the fact that we've only seen a small sample size. I would sit here and I would argue that the best is still yet to come with Chase Young because he's just been limited, because we've only seen just a little bit of him yet. So I would argue that his prime football, his best days are still well in front of him. The statistics of what Chase Young has done throughout his career. 7.5 sacks his rookie season. 2 sacks his second season. And then last year in 3 games, we didn't see a whole lot of him. Just 5 tackles, no sacks there. I got to tell you, I'm all in on Chase Young. Let's see the Seahawks make this happen and bring him in. Today's show is presented by BetUS, the exclusive sportsbook partner of Chat Sports. Go to chatsports.com/bet, enter the promo code Seahawks125. You will get a 125% deposit bonus. Put $100 down, you get $125 to spend for free. You can bet on Seahawks football all season long, including this weekend against the Detroit Lions. Seahawks are underdogs, about a touchdown, as Detroit's favored by 7. Expecting to be a lot of points, over under at 47. Get your bets in now on your Seattle Seahawks or other action around the National Football League at chatsports.com/bet, promo code Seahawks125 to get your bets in today. Young, the former number 2 overall pick out of Ohio State in 2020, made an immediate impact when he entered the NFL as a Pro Bowler, also was named the NFL's Defensive Rookie of the Year. And when it comes to the contract situation with Chase Young, he's entering the final year of his rookie deal, owed about $5.32 million in base salary. So the Seahawks, they can take that on. That's not a problem right now. And I think when we talk about value as far as him being available at a discount for a number former 2 pick, the generational talent we're talking about here, I think you can pull this off with a second-round pick, potentially. You could get this trade done. Don't have to give up a first. You might even be able to pull it off with a third-round pick, potentially. And the reason why you get the discount is because the Commanders in a position where they don't want to invest long-term and pay him, comparably speaking to the Seahawks that would. You're not likely going to find a better player than Chase Young with that second-round pick. The argument against is going to be, hey, you need to hang on to your trade assets. You need all the draft capital you can for young players. And I understand that argument. But I'm telling you right now, the chances are very slim that your second-round pick player is going to be better than what you would get with Chase Young. You already know what he is. You already know that he's a very good football player and with high potential. Market value for his next contract is around 4 years, $71.5 million. Personally, I wouldn't pay him right away. I would go ahead and double-check and see if you like the investment and then pay him after this season. To me, I think that can make sense. That can work. 4 years, 71.5, that's well within reason for the Seahawks to make flexible and work long-term. So let's begin a movement here on Seahawks Today. I want everybody in the comments section, because I know you agree with me. And if you don't agree with me on this one, you're a hater. I'm just kidding. Let's spam Young to Seattle in the comments. I want to start this movement. Let's make John Schneider and Pete Carroll listen to us. Let's make the 12s, let their voices be heard, and begin the movement right now and bring Chase Young to Seattle. I want you to spam Young to Seattle in the comments. Let's let it be known. Let's get this going and bring Chase Young to Seattle. John, Pete, get it done. Young to Seattle. Let's go. Injury update on Jamal Adams. Pete Carroll says that Adams will return to Seahawks practice this week in a limited capacity. He elaborated as such, saying the following: let's take it one day at a time. He's going to have a limited amount of plays as he gets back and re-enters, but he'll get individual work and start getting some of the basic stuff just to get him out there. A few things that you need to know when it comes to the Jamal Adams situation. He's returning from a torn quad injury, and the last couple of weeks he's participated in walkthroughs. So he's been around, and remember, they didn't put him on the PUP list because the hope was that he would be back within 4 weeks. Now, just because he's going through this next limited portion, that doesn't mean he will be a full go versus Detroit. I would think that it's still unlikely that Jamal Adams plays this weekend against the Lions. And it's been a long time since we've seen Jamal Adams. In fact, it's been over a calendar year now since Jamal Adams last took the football field for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, before the season began, the thing that I told you about Jamal Adams, and most people believed, that having Jamal Adams back was considered a luxury of sorts, that you already had Quandre Diggs, you brought in Julian Love, and the secondary, of course, they invested a lot in, and that group was supposed to be one of the best position groups in football. But then after last week, the debacle of just how awful it was against the Rams and how bad the secondary played, all of a sudden I think we reevaluate things and say, you know what? The Seahawks could really use Jamal Adams. It's not so much a luxury anymore. It's a need. They need to get him back in the football field. The grades, according to PFF, the top 8 coverage grades were not pretty for the Seahawks last week. Reek Woolen with a 64.6 grade, Devin Bush with a 61.9, Darrell Taylor with a 61.5, Artie Burns with a 60.4, and the list goes on and on. It was not pretty, according to the data and then the scoreboard as well, indicated as such the Seahawks really had problems letting Matthew Stafford pick them apart. What is your confidence level in the Seahawks secondary at this point in time? Scale it for me 1 through 10, and let me know how you feel about this group going forward. I'm optimistic. I hope that the worst was behind them. They left it behind last week. We'll see. Scale it for me in the comment section what your confidence level is. A lot of roster moves for the Seahawks the last couple of days. We told you about some of them on the show earlier this week, but want to catch up to speed on some of these that have happened so far to this point when it comes in particular to the practice squad. Holton Ahlers released from the practice squad. I think he's going to bounce around the practice squad for much of the year. Greg Elam is back on the practice squad for now, while Brian Breeze was released. He was picked up last week. Now he's off again. And then there's Jason Peters, who was picked up on the practice squad. I think there's a chance we could see him get elevated to the active roster potentially as early this week. We will see. How would you grade the Seahawks roster where things stand right now? A, B, C, D, or F? Let us know what you think in the comments section where the Seahawks stand right now heading in to week number 2. How you feel about this group, let me know. Subscribe to the channel for more Seahawks coverage each and every day here on Seahawks Today. We love talking about your Seattle Seahawks. Better days ahead, I can promise you that. And hopefully we see a Seahawks win this weekend. Don't miss out. We'll be live here on the channel for Seahawks and Lions here. Myself, Tyler Smith-Schmitty, will be here with you. Our coverage begins 9 a.m. Pacific time right here on Seahawks Today. You will not want to miss out on it. And we will see you next time here on Seahawks Today.